Welcome to Fake, where we talk about labels that fit and labels that don't. And what is the label we're talking about today?
We're talking about parents.
Parents, fake dad, fake mom, all that stuff. Enjoy some B-roll of my kids, and then we'll catch up with you with actual footage of us talking, so you can enjoy that as well.
Perfect. And so I guess the first question I have for you is, why do you feel like a fake dad?
Well, I am a real dad. I have one right there and then one somewhere.
In the distance, I see
somewhere
them.
out there. So hashtag twin dad is real.
Yes.
I feel like a fake dad because I didn't have one growing up. So I'm blazing my own trail. I feel like a fake dad because we could probably explore these differently. Kind of like the point of being a good father is you realize you're not the main character anymore and you're a supporting character in someone else's story. But maybe it's just unfilled potential or stuff I wanted to do. But
so when you think about like the dad that you didn't have, do you feel like you're sort of making it up as you go along, or like what would you say is your reference point? I
know what a dad's supposed to do. Because I didn't have that in my life, I'm a very good student of how other people are handling their kids. I see a great dad right here.
Yes.
And maybe he can parent my kid while he's at it.
Yeah.
And then I saw what normal kids do, both in like my peers and also when I was in youth leadership, like the good dads and the bad dads and that sort of thing. So I know it's required. Sometimes I don't feel like I want to do it. These kids are the best thing that's ever happened to me, but we're both people that have agendas of our own, things that we want to accomplish. And being a dad was a required one of those. That's a deal breaker. Like if Blair my wife wasn't interested, then we would not be together. But now that they're here, and because we have two of them, like energy level gone, frustration level always maxed. It's either I miss my kids desperately, or as soon like by 6:10, I'm like, I need a break. I pick them up at like 5:45. So it's kind of like being an introvert and an extrovert. Like it's not what you enjoy, it's what brings you energy. And in being a 5-year-old twin dad, it depletes my energy.
It's hard.
Even when I do it well.
Yes.
Which is often.
No, you do it well. I mean, as far as I can tell, you are doing an incredible job. And also, there is no structure. There's no rule book. There's no sort of like, guide, right? You're making it up as you go along, which all the parents that I know are doing that as well. But I think you're doing phenomenally. They are like healthy, safe, they are so much fun, and they get into all kinds of like fun adventures. So you were saying, what a good dad is and what is a bad dad? And sort of, is there anything that you are trying really hard to sort of stay away from so that you don't become what you consider to be a bad dad?
Yeah. When I was doing youth leadership stuff with the church and also my peers, I would see the bad dads as like having abusive behaviors. That's easy. But also like you're trying to mold this kid into what you are or what you wanted to be. And you do want them to grow off, like start their life on your shoulders and grow upwards. But also, but I don't want, if Graydon turns out like me, that's a waste of potential.
And why do you think that?
Because I want him to be in a better place than me. Like if he's interested in video games, filmmaking, and making podcasts in the woods, that's fine. But I want him to start and not have the 15 wasted years of hating themselves that I did. If we could narrow that down to a solid 3, I'd be happy. I want him to have more confidence in himself. I want him to not seek my approval, which one of the perks of not having a solid father figure is like that whole part of my life doesn't exist. Whereas there's people older than me that are still doing things for daddy's approval.
Oh my gosh, the trauma I had. So my father was, he was super controlling. He wanted to make sure that everything was done a certain way. And there was no room for error. And so I find in my life, certain bosses trigger that in me and certain relationships trigger that in me where I feel like I am trying to go above and beyond and go out of my way to get their approval when that is what was sort of hammered into me by my father. When I was in college, I got a 3.9 or a 3.8 GPA. One of my thank you. One of my college years in my bachelor's degree. And my dad said, "Oh, you couldn't go any higher?" Right? So so what he was doing is he believed that education was the most important thing. That is how you make your way in this world. That is how, people respect you, and success is defined that way. And so for me, it just was like, oh, okay. So no matter what I do, I'm not doing what he wanted. It doesn't matter how hard I try or what grades I get. I still can't reach his expectations. And so what's kind of a benefit maybe in your case is that you don't necessarily have that sort of baggage. So you can come into the relationships with your children from a whole new perspective because you're not carrying some of that, which I think is really unique. I think that is a really unique thing to have. And you don't have to say, well, I don't want to do what my dad did, or, you can just sort of write your own rules.
Yeah. Yeah, it's benefited me in some ways, yeah. My mom was always around. She worked the night shift primarily so she could be at all the stuff because she did a lot of this on her own. But despite being physically available, she wasn't emotionally available just because she had so much stuff from her upbringing and her life. So being emotionally available is what I'm really trying to do. And some days I'm effective. Nope, you can't take that away. I'm sorry. But some days I'm not where I need to be. Look at that little Kool-Aid mustache.
I know. I love it. It's a very fetching color on you.
Thank you. Oh, you just got some of the Powerade on your whiskers there. I
don't have any. Okay. She doesn't have any whiskers.
That's right. Okay. But yeah, the energy sapping. I mean, I've never been a super high energy person. Yeah. So it's a lot. And especially when they get bonded to you. Like, I love my kids, but sometimes it's like, even when they're babies, it's like, I need these babies away from me. Like, I need to not be touched right now. Yes. And like in my workplace, I have a little cave I can crawl into. And yes. I'm a selective introvert, so I can like do that at home before kids. I could do that and manage my own time. Yeah. But now I can't. Yeah, exactly. It's not repulsion, but that repulsion gives me the fake dad vibes. And I'm sure other people feel that way. Of course, because you know what? You're only human, right? You're only human, and so you don't have unlimited wellsprings of energy. And so essentially, once you have children, there's this sort of automatic thing where people say, well, you find the energy, you make the time, right? Yeah. You pull it from wherever you pull it from, and now you've got it. But that doesn't really track for me, because if you, like, I have no children, I have a dog. I come home at the end of a work day, and maybe I've had a really hard time, and I feel terrible. I feel like I have no energy. And then I can't imagine how I would have summoned more energy that I don't have to help raise a child, right? Like, to me, I have so much respect and admiration for parents because they're working full-time jobs. And then at the end of a hard day, coming up with the energy to read to their kids, play games, teach them something, life lessons, take them to the park, like whatever the case is. And so to me, I think it's perfectly respectable. Oh, he wants to go into the woods. Graydon, come back. Not yet. Okay, play in there for now, and then we'll go there in a little bit.
I think, when you say that it feels fake to you to, like, when you're tired, right? When you feel like, oh my gosh, I don't always, like 100% of the time want to be around them, and that makes it feel fake. That is so real, actually. Like, that is, when people are just like, oh, I want to be around my kids all the time. I love them. I'm obsessed with them. It's like, that's not real, right? Because we all get tired. We all have moments where we're angry or frustrated.
There's people that say that and they believe it and they do it. Like, you will see them, and I'm not in their houses every day. Yeah. And some of them are probably complete frauds, but some of them are like legitimately for real. how they live their life. They base it around their kids, and they're super happy.
But I think that there's a taboo. I think that people feel like they have to be that way. Because if you say, oh, I don't want to be around my kids, that is a taboo topic. That is a thing that people just don't express. And so I think that is a reason why people feel
I mean, don't touch the box. Don't touch the box. You can stand there, but just don't touch the box for the camera.
And she asks why, which is like, yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I love how curious kids are, and they want to know why things are the way that they are, right? But I think that those people are lying to themselves. I think they are, because, you know, I was in a store, I was in Hobby Lobby or Michael's or whatever, and this woman had 3 kids with her.
Hey, come here. What are you eating? Oh, popcorn. Excuse me. Okay, go ahead. I forgot it was over here.
Yes, popcorn is good. But it's not a bad question. But there was a woman who, you know, she had her 3 kids in the store with her. One was in a cart, like in a car seat in the cart, and 2 young ones, and they were poking each other and messing with each other. And she just totally like flipped out, which understandably, you know, one kid, he's raising his voice. He's kind of running around the store. The other girl is like, you know, doing her own thing, and she's trying to manage all this by herself. And so I had a lot of respect for her for taking 3 children into a store, and they're all like under 4 years old, right? Like that's
take them in public. I mean, I'm much more of a take them in public, because then they can't do damage to the house and get my wife upset.
Yeah,
so I'm
that's fair.
I mean, I don't know if this is healthy or not, but I'm managing 3 sets of emotions. Usually not mine. Mine's usually all over the place, but these 3, and then it is a lot. The people that are like really healthy with it, and they do just like their life revolves around the kids, like for real, like some of that is they might have achieved more of what they wanted to do before kids. Or I think I've done a lot of cool stuff, but a lot of that is I've made concessions and settled in certain areas, and it wears on me still, because I haven't fully given up doing the weird stuff I want to do.
Right, and you shouldn't, right? Because you're still a person, and just because you've had children doesn't mean that you lose that personhood. One of the biggest, so I myself don't have children, and I don't plan to, and one of the biggest reasons for that, for me personally, was I was afraid to lose my identity. Because the white butterfly.
Go check it out on your own. No more talking to us, okay? You didn't want to lose your identity.
I didn't want to lose my identity. And as a woman, as the mother, right, you become mommy. You become mom. You become a sort of separate thing, right? You can be a wife. You can be a employee, a sister, what have you. But once you become a mother, it sort of becomes a moniker that the child doesn't see you as a person for a long time, because they are like sort of all id, right? Like they have needs, they have things they want. They're not thinking about your individuality, you as a person. I didn't think of my mom as a person until high school. And I was like, wait a minute. Okay. I mean, she said to me, like, I'm not your maid, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, wait a minute, she's not my maid. She's my mom. And she has her own identity, and she has her own things that she wants to do. And so for me, becoming a parent felt impossible, because I don't know how well I would be able to reconcile the identity, because the child wants the mom, right? Like there are some cases where it's like, oh, okay. But when it comes to breastfeeding, when it comes to a lot of things, the baby wants the mom. And for me, that felt so impossible. And it just felt like I wouldn't be able to be who I am. Like, I don't know. I have really struggled with it. And ultimately we decided not to, because for me, I'm a writer and I have things I want to write. And so I don't want to get to the end of my life and feel like anything held me back from doing the thing that I feel like I was put on this earth to do, which is storytelling. But yeah, I mean, but you look like you were going to say something.
Yeah. So in defense of children,
yes.
So a lot of the things I do now that I did before, they have more gravitas to me because of all the effort I have to put in.
Yes.
Either to make it happen or to to put around it. It doesn't open up new lanes of energy, but it opens up new lanes of maybe impact. So like even that 48-hour film we did, which we'll talk about maybe next episode.
It's fantastic.
Like I always took that more seriously than other people, but I continue to take it more seriously because I have to move things around and schedule it to make this happen.
Yes.
So
it's not just a drop in the, like it's a big production. It's you know, you're scheduling the time, you're making space in your mental space, like everything is being organized around
Keep talking.
Oh, for sure. And so, I mean, I think that is, oh yeah, he's so cute. Oh.
I got you back.
But when it comes to like, I think one of the things that comes up is people think, okay, well, you know, you don't like children, right? Like if you don't have them, or if you don't want to have them, you don't like them, which is completely untrue. It's just, you know, I have a lot of anxiety, and I have a lot of things that I'm recently like working through. Emerson's not, she's like, yeah, you have a lot of anxiety.
She's working through stuff too. She's going to therapy twice a week.
Yeah. And so that kind of stuff, that work is really important. And I know that like my mental load right now, I just can't imagine it, but it doesn't mean that I don't value what they bring. And it doesn't mean that I don't like them. And so I think that's something that I've had to sort of reconcile, as like, people will say, oh, well, why? Like, or people say to me, oh, well, you'd make a great mother. And it's like, well, that's not really the point, right? Like that's not really what it is about. But
you would make a great mother.
Thank you.
But that's not what it's really about.
It's not what it's really about. However, like I have dear friends whose kids I love being around, like you. I love being around Emerson and Graydon. They're super fun. They're barrels of laughs, right?
Sure, sometimes.
Yes. I love your watch, by the way. It's very cool. Okay, so kind of steering back.
Well, hold on. So you mentioned losing your identity, and that is a bigger risk for a woman.
Yes.
I mean, you go through the pregnancy with them. Blair was talking about this one being too attached to me.
Oh my gosh, Green took his crack off.
Oh, he's okay. My wife was saying something about her being too attached to me, and I was like, well, I held her in my sack for a solid 3 minutes. And I understand, like, people were all proud of me when I told them, like, we were expecting or whatever. But, like, yes. I get to use a lot of the excuses of being a parent to the outside world. And whereas my wife takes on a lot of the burdens, and you take on a lot of the burdens of, like, explaining why you do, explaining why you don't, explaining why you aren't going to have more.
Right. Oh yeah. Do people ask you about that?
Yeah, for sure, all the time.
Really?
Yeah. When's the next one coming?
Really?
I see you have fertile stock. What are you gonna do?
Oh my gosh, that's funny because it's like it's no one's business any way you slice it, right?
My wife gets offended by it. I take it in good nature. I believe it's all positive intention, and also it's not me carrying them.
Right.
So yes. I have different relationships with myself in the whole birthing process because they were not an easy birth for my wife, and it was not an easy couple weeks with Emerson.
Yeah.
She was in the NICU for a while, and my wife and I went down entirely different tracks. Like, healthiest kid in the NICU. It was all about she just had to feed. Like her blood sugar was too low when she came out, and he came home, and so they kept him a week. They kept her 2 weeks, and you coming home without a baby it messes me up, but it destroyed her.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And she's immediately beating herself up, and just all that postpartum stuff that I believe every woman has, they just handle it differently. So intrusive thoughts were huge.
Oh yeah.
And then I was thankful. Nope, pull it up. I was thankful because I was ready to be a dad, but also I wanted to get adjusted, and that was a perfect adjustment point.
Yes.
And getting the animals adjusted with you. So yeah, it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
For the guy.
And you were saying how the identity of dad is a little bit different because the relationship that you have to them is not the same as your wife because she had to carry them. So it's a different thing.
Yeah.
But then
and that might even be and I'm not saying my wife does this, but you could resent them for what they do to your body.
Right.
Because your body is blasted, especially after 2.
I love that word.
Like, it wrecks you. I saw it, and my wife was beautiful throughout her pregnancy, beautiful after, but it is to a point where it's like, should we be having kids this way?
Oh, yeah.
It is, like, your body stretches, your body, it's...
And yet it's something that we are, like, made to do in a way. Like, it's something, it's not made to do. Like, I don't think that I am not a woman for, I think they were over that way. I don't think I'm not a woman for not having them, but it is really fascinating how our bodies are meant to sort of do all of this gymnastics in order to make this happen. So we're talking about fake dad. You were saying how, you know, you don't have something to sort of compare it to, but then we were also talking about how that could be sort of a benefit. So do you ever find yourself or feel like you're being a bad dad?
Oh, all the time.
Really?
Every time. I mean, I'm not racked with guilt. I think I'm playing the hands I'm dealt.
Yeah.
But yeah, probably now when I don't have eyesight of my kids, I mean, it's wild out there, and it is.
I can see that. Well, I can see Graydon. I'm sure that.
Yeah.
Is
I leave the kids in the car when I have to go in the gas station and do something. Like, there's a billion times, and I'm like, there's some parts of being a piece of shit that I'm willing to accept, and there's some parts of being a piece of shit that I'm not. And I guess it's a counter you have to make with yourself and with your local laws and statutes, I guess. Like, even so, our monthly game nights, that's time I'm not spending with my kids and time that they are aware that I'm working late. So, like, that is a decision that I'm making. And I believe doing that makes me a better father when I come home, because I can have some outside exposure and
which
balance.
You need. You can't have your children can't be your only thing. So my friend's husband found out the hard way. He stopped playing video games. He stopped really hanging out with his friends, and all he focused on was their kid. And then he started to feel the effects of that, right? Because we're not singular. We contain multitudes. So even if you are a parent, that can't be your only thing, because when they grow up and when they don't really need you in the same ways, then what are you doing, right? What do you do from there? And so I really respect that you make time for, and I think Blair does this too, make time for yourselves outside of your children. And make
she does not do it to a point where I do. Like, she is responsibility first, second, third. So today, when I took the kids, she's scrubbing the house. She has a different level of what she's willing to accept the house at.
Yes.
A level which I believe is unrealistic. But that's what it is. I have a level of, like, what type of attitude you need to have on a daily basis. And people disagree with that too. So it's levels, and I think kids should adjust some of the responsibilities or the things you put on yourself. It's wild out there. So, fake dad, quick summary of my story. None of the males stepped up, period, ever. I mean, they all knew I was a bastard, but it wasn't that. It was just they had their own lives, and they're also, like, a generation older. But, like, nobody filled that gap, even though I was in a big church. I mean, it's a big responsibility to be, like, a big brother to a kid. But so that's another, like, when I say, like, I had opportunities to have fake fathers, and I got some and I missed some, and
Wow. Well, I mean, I'm so sorry, because that is a lot a lot of emotion to have to process.
Well, when my kids are doing the fake podcast 20 years from now, hopefully they don't have to go through all this. It's all good.
Yeah. But, I think sometimes I don't know if you give yourself enough credit. Like, I know there's a lot that I don't see, but also I just know that it's not, I don't think I need to have a child to know how hard it is. Like, making sure that they're well, and making sure that they're safe, and making sure that they eat the right stuff and don't eat too much of the wrong stuff, and just everything.
I have no control over what they eat.
Yeah.
They've done pretty good today, but usually it's nonstop garbage. Don't sit too close to the camera because it shakes it. But you can sit by us if you want.
Yeah. It's like, I'm good where I'm at.
So you feel good. You made the decision. You made it with your husband. All good. Do you believe you'll have any second thoughts when you're 31?
That's a great, I'm 32.
32. Okay. You're 32 now. When you're 40?
I don't know that I will, but what I want to say too is that, the choice that I'm making, my mom doesn't agree, which like, she doesn't disagree. What I'm saying is, she doesn't think, like, I personally tell her, Mom, because I've made this decision, now I have to grieve the life that I would have had if I had kids. And she doesn't agree. And she says, well, why do you have to do that? You're making the choice, so why do you have to grieve it? She's not sort of processing that, we contain multitudes as people. We can hold a lot of different emotions at the same time. And so she's doing a pretty good job of it, though. We can hold a lot of different emotions at the same time, just to make sure. And so I think it's possible to grieve. I think I am grieving the life that I would have had, because when I'm with Nick's family and we're surrounded by the cousins and everyone's there, that energy I really love. And if I don't contribute to that by having children of my own, then whenever I go to family gatherings, it's going to be like, okay, well, whose family? And, is it Nick's family? I mean, my family we don't have a ton of people. And so I have to sort of grieve that life. Yeah. And
how do you grieve that life?
I grieve it by sort of just feeling sad. I feel sad. And I know it makes no sense. It doesn't sound like it makes sense. But I feel sad when I think about some of those things that I won't have, right? Because there are probably moments where you look at them and you're just like, wow, you came from absolutely thin air, and you have your own personality and your own interests.
What's wrong?
And your own things. Oh yeah, now it's better.
You're getting bigger, and you don't know what you touch. Like you don't realize how tall you are, so you bump your head, or how long your legs are, so you trip. It's part of growing up. Part of growing up. Yeah, I get it. So I was 35. My wife was 33 when these guys were born. Later than I wanted to be, but totally fine. Yeah. The scope of my ambition had already narrowed for what I wanted to accomplish a little bit, but I still want to do stuff and put stuff out there. And my wife has a few goals. They're different than mine, but but eventually, I believe as you age, the scope of your ambition for most people goes more narrow. Yeah, and
it changes for sure.
I don't know how I would be at this age if these guys didn't exist. I know for a fact I'd be a worse person. Okay. I know for a fact, the gaming community, if I would have pushed to make it happen, it wouldn't be at near the level it was, because a lot of the stuff I do, for them, I try to do for the random people that show a pulse in our community a little bit. Sometimes it feels so healthy and so right that it's everything's going according to plan. Don't even worry about me. And sometimes it's like a feathered fish, and it's these two things don't connect. Yeah. So yeah, it's a balance.
That's interesting that you think that you would be a worse person. I wonder, it's just interesting to think about it that way, because I wonder if there is anything that if I had them, would I be different? I would be different, but in what ways? And so it's kind of an alternate reality view, right?
It is.
There's actually this movie, I forgot what it's called, but it stars this woman from, I don't know if you watched Riverdale at all, but it stars the woman who played...
I know exactly. It's like Sliding Doors. That's not what it's called, but it's she has a kid in one, she doesn't, Yes, I know what you're talking about. I have not seen it. I saw the trailer, yeah. Okay. The blonde girl, Betty.
From, Betty from Riverdale.
Veronica was the black one, Betty was the blonde
one. Yes. And so, I saw that movie, and I just remember thinking, this is a really interesting project.
Okay, after this is done, I'll push you on the swings, all right?
Oh, there we go. I remember thinking that was a really interesting project because it was showing these parallel lives of this woman. And then she she ends in the same place.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really interesting. Like in both situations, she ends in the same place. And so I think it's sort of a testament to you can have children and still do some of the things you want. Yeah. You just can't do them all at once.
Yeah.
Right? Which is okay.
And some of the things that a person wants can be accomplished through time, effort, and just grinding. Yes. And some of the things a person wants is completely by chance or requires you to have a different mindset.
Yes.
So,
exactly.
I totally get that, my place could be in the same player. But, I mean, career-wise, I was going nowhere with or without kids. It probably saved me from getting laid off. They probably looked at the story and be like, yeah, it makes sense to keep him around. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And, from 15 to probably 27, I didn't have a life period. And if anything, I wish I could take some of this joy, stress, financial burden and give it to that guy a little bit to get him out of himself a little bit.
Yeah.
And also to get some pressure off me where I got to juggle a bunch of stuff or drag a minivan of people to something that I don't really want to do. I just wish I could go back in time and just have that guy babysit for a while.
Yeah.
And get him in love with humanity a little bit sooner. And
that's really interesting.
But it's all your development path. And I mean, that 12 years in darkness or whatever, that helped me appreciate what I got now, I hope.
Yeah. No, I think something that you were saying sort of led me to this other thought that I have, which is I've had a few friends who have kids that say things to me like, oh, well, I was tired of going out and doing stuff all the time. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not really all that I do. It sort of feels kind of like people say, well, I don't need to go out every night and party and blah, blah, blah.
You're not hoeing around. You're in a committed relationship.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And it's like, well, that's not really the extent of adult existence without children, right? Going out and doing that's not all of that there is. I work on my novel. I do things that I write for Grand Rapids Magazine, which feels really fulfilling to me. And I have really fulfilling relationships with people. And sometimes that is by going out to a place. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're getting wasted. I mean, you and I, we hardly ever drink together, but we have these kind of moments where we get to build on our relationship. And so
which is a complete anomaly. You understand that, right?
No.
No one else had a married white guy and a married black woman making multiple things that are tangible together. These are anomalies.
I guess so. I haven't thought of it that way.
Every childless person is not building. I don't know what they're.
Oh, I see.
And definitely no married man is having this type of relationship. I have another phone at home, so my wife sometimes sees the thing you texted me late about yesterday, and it just went off. And she's like, I did look at it. I was like, you are open to check that phone out whenever you want. So,
right. No, I find that when I don't have children, I can actually pour more time and energy into things like this and help to nourish friends who have children and maybe need some extra boost, right?
And you definitely do that.
Thank you. I have a friend who we went and played board games at her house. She has her son. She's just found out she's pregnant recently. So, for me, it felt like an opportunity to just sort of be there and be supportive. And I'm the cheerleader, right? I'm a cheerleader, but I'm also, I want to spend my life pouring into other people. And I feel like I can do that more completely when I don't have kids.
Do you believe that love that you pour into everything is appreciated to what it's... I mean, we don't do things for the reward, or we shouldn't.
Right.
But sometimes I think...
I want to come show you something.
Okay, we're almost done. Sometimes I feel like what you pour into things isn't appreciated because... I don't know if it's because you don't have kids, but I think it's because you give away so freely.
Oh, that's really interesting.
I'm trying positive.
Yes.
Positive.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
When I first saw you run around doing that dumb thing for the syrup, I was like, oh, that girl's a lot. But, I see that, now I see that with hindsight. You better not have a bloody mouth.
Oh, no, she said it looks like
it. Oh, yeah.
Because of the
You got a little bloody mouth, too. And I know that because I'm a lot too, and I'm extra too, just in different ways. And it's definitely not appreciated as much as I believe it should be. And since I've had kids, I've been able to put my foot off the gas on some things, especially the ones that weren't filling me back up.
And serving you in that way. Yeah.
Like I would almost be, I've propped up a couple of my former managers at our company to a point and gave them really a second gust of wind in their careers. I don't know if it's trying to fill the gap from the dad thing or if it was just I had this excess space and I didn't really have something to put into and I was like, oh, here's a bucket, I can dump it in.
Interesting. Okay, so on the first part about giving freely, that's a really interesting perspective to hear you say that. I have had people say to me literally, why are you so nice? And I'm like, what? Like, it's just who I am. It's just my personality. You've known me for a while now. And even on some of my worst days, I mean, you'd probably say, oh yeah, you still are pretty upbeat. You still have
you're in the top 10% like positive people.
Yes.
Externally.
Yes. And it's sort of like, it's inherent. Like I don't feel like there's any other way to be. And so I do give of myself freely, sometimes to my detriment. I volunteer for projects.
Yeah, I've seen do it.
That I can't.
I've told people leave it alone. They don't.
Yeah, and they don't. And they're like, no, we're going to ask Pasha for this thing.
Don't do it.
I
you
know.
need to be developing a squadron of people that can do things, not just Pasha.
Yes, exactly. And
I know that because I've been that guy. Yeah, after we're done with this, I'll go check it out.
And so, like, it's just really interesting because I am seeing, and I wonder, like, in, I don't know, 30 years or whatever, what am I going to think about the energy that I've been able to give to other people? Because I sort of feel like I have a wellspring of energy, right? Like, I'm always feeling like I can put a positive spin on something without it being toxic positivity. Because I acknowledge when things are not great, right? Like, so there's, that's... Can
I show you now?
No, you can't. I'm sorry. I'm bad dad. See, this is a bad dad. Just put the bad dad.
No. But it's teaching moments too, right? They can't always have things done exactly their way. It just doesn't work that way. That's not how life is. And so, you're doing the best that you can, and also you're teaching them real things. They can't just sort of do whatever all the time, and it's a lesson that gets learned in different ways, with their school, with their friends, with their teachers. Like, I mean, there's probably always a teaching moment to be had, right? And you're just like, oh my gosh.
And some of it can be taught by parents. Some of it just has to be learned from them screwing up.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you have to.
So Graydon's trying to push himself on the swing now.
I can teach you how to do that.
Yeah, and I've taught him a dozen times, but he just wants me to push him. Yeah, you're going to get pushed a little bit. Your wellspring of energy.
Yeah.
If you were this is a later episode, but if you were in a predominantly black or non-white environment, do you think you would still be acting in that way? Or is that question. Subconscious, like, not assimilation thing, but maybe you have to prove yourself thing? I don't know.
No. That is something that I've had to do. So in a black household, or at least in my black household, my parents always said, you have to work twice as hard to get half as far. Yeah. Exactly. And so, like, for me, it's just always that's been something that's ingrained in me. But no, I think for the most part, the environment is sort of like, regardless of the environment, I do feel like I have that wellspring of energy, because when it comes to my black friends or when it comes to my own family, I don't know that being in a predominantly black environment would change that. I think I went to really black. I mean, there are a lot of black people. Elementary school and then high school, and I've always been the same. And so I don't think that there's like any differences in that. But it is interesting that you position it that way, because it's not a bad question. But it is something that I feel like I get so much joy out of.
Yeah.
Being able to share my energy with people and to uplift people and to, I actually talked to my life coach, and one of my biggest things is like that activation and that like creating and building culture. Like for me, being a part of the gaming community that is like how I learned really about my interest in doing that. Like my interest in wanting to grow communities. I love it. You're crawling through. It's very fun. It's a very cute little place, this little clubhouse. But yeah, and so it's fine. Yeah, the gaming community really helped me want to do that. And so it feels like a huge blessing and benefit to be a part of something. And that's where I felt like I couldn't leave Steelcase yet, because I'm in the mood to continue to inspire people and delight people and make well-being like such an important part of being at the company. And just, I feel like our work is not done. And so that's why, for me, I like that activation and that we're building culture. We are changing the culture of the company.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. Yeah, to be able to affect that.
Yeah, cool. To wrap this up, it's been a while. Thank you. This is a great conversation.
Thank you for sharing your stories and being so personal and I appreciate you sharing.
It's over.
Almost. Yeah, and I try not to let my story overwhelm the stuff that needs to be done with the kids. Sometimes you can't be around it now. Usually it's just me versus my energy level more than any thing broken in my brain.
And that's hard,
I'm always going to look at you and say she'd be a great mother.
For sure.
I'll try not to say it to you too
For
directly.
Sure. I understand. Yes, I get it.
And there's a lot of the wrong people having kids, and there's just not a lot of the great people.
The right,
And who am I to say that? Someone with 5 years experience.
No. I know what you mean, though. Like, people who are just breeding, like, hatefulness and, like, just that kind of thing.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who are,
There was far too many families at the Trump event I saw yesterday. It was tough to see, and the kids were fully bought in. Nobody was like dragged there, but there was a really handsome Middle Eastern family. They were all in like a 3-piece suit in that heat. It's like, oh man, I feel so bad.
Wow. But also just the fact that they felt like they needed to show up and be there, and my legacy will be different, and my legacy will be, will live on in the children that I have known and that I have helped be part of their lives. Like,
you'll live in through my kids.
Yeah, and hopefully they say, "Hey, what's Pasha up to?" But also just like in the people that I've helped, and like it is kind of sad, right? There is sort of that feeling of you have to grieve what the choice that you didn't make, right? Even if you don't really care in either direction, there is still some sort of like you have to let it go and have a moment with it.
Yeah, I guess as long as it leads to letting it go and living your path fully. And I get some of. I was a youth leader hardcore for like 6 years, and seeing those kids grow up and now they're hitting 30.
Yeah,
you came on one of my church kids, hitting 30 and going very different ways, and I'm like, that's not the kid that I raised, or that's kid's far better than the one I raised.
You can't do that at school, okay? You can just do that here.
All right, we'll wrap this up. Thank you for watching Fake discussion about labels that fit, labels that don't. This was our parent section. So.
Yes, our second episode. Yeah.
Very nice. All right, can you go wave bye to the camera?
Bye.
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 Perfect.